What's going on, guys? This is your boy XQ420 here. I want to welcome everybody back to another episode, Showtime with the Cube. I've got the powerful Corey Hughes as my co-host. Once again, Corey, how you doing?
Good, man. I'm good.
Yeah. If it's your first time to this channel, don't hesitate to hit the subscribe button. You will not regret it. If you listen to us on podcast platforms, hit the follow button there. Appreciate everybody who's listened to us so far. So, Corey, we are jumping into the finale of the Rings of Power. This first season came to a close. Can I say it wrapped everything up in a nice bow? Not quite, but this is what we got. Okay, this is what we got for the first season. I'm just kind of glad that I seen a ring. Okay, I didn't see the ring, but at least I got to see a ring. Okay, so we're kicking off. Corey, how your initial thoughts, your initial feelings on this last episode?
It was awful. It was total, complete dog shit. Let's just take everything that Tolkien wrote and just burn it in the backyard and come up with our own shit. Because we only had 9 fucking episodes and we had to squeeze everything in these like little hour-long, shows. So no, they fucked up everything horribly. I don't want to skip to the end already, man, but god damn, if you know the lore about how the rings came about into existence, they just said, we don't care about history. We don't care about the lore or the story. And we definitely don't care about Tolkien. And fans, fuck you. And here we're just going to give you our own shit.
Yeah, they kind of because I want to do just a little bit of backtracking or a little bit of research on the Rings of Power because of course they got everything centered around the Mithril, okay, and from what I've seen in the actual in the actual books from the research I had done is that it's only stated that Mithril was only in one ring, which was in Galadriel's ring. So the Mithril wasn't the secret sauce to making all these rings, quote unquote. So I know that was one thing that I had seen that they had kind of moved off track of. They're making this Mithril the key component of the rings and of pretty much everything. All right, so pretty much everything. So this particular episode, we didn't get any of the dwarves, none of Durin, and we didn't get any of Arondir or Browning.
Mm-hmm.
So their particular arc in this first season has been completed.
But we got Harfoots.
You definitely got Harfoots. Out of those characters right there, I would probably my hierarchy of those would probably be Durin, Arondir, and Browning as far as my enjoyment of them the most. How do you feel about those 3 characters?
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. They're the only competent characters in the whole goddamn show, it seems. So
yeah. So yeah, none of them. So that they just complete. I mean, you didn't get some dialogue or anything. So I guess they're just chilling out there, doing their thing currently. So. We're going to break this up into a couple sections here. We're going to do the Harfoots first with the Stranger, and then we'll jump into the elves with the rings that were created. So with the Harfoots, of course, from the previous episode, we've seen the 3 mysterious people who were looking for the Stranger, and come to find out, they believe this dude's Sauron. All right. How many? Sauron's one of the most slipperiest villains ever. Okay, because nobody knows his identity, when he's coming back, what shape or form he's gonna be in. It's just like, I mean, like they come up to this dude and like, Lord Sauron. I'm like, the retard. I mean, Sauron, stick with us. Your powers will return soon. I'm like, Bo, this dude ain't got a clue what he's doing. He don't even know who you talking about. You know what I'm saying?
So they fucking had me going for a solid 10 minutes before I realized what they were doing.
Yeah, did they?
Yeah.
So they had you a little confused there for a minute.
A little. I'm like, well, did they really do a good job of tricking us thus far?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, of course not. So,
yeah, of course not. So of course, the Harfoots have went on their way. The band of Harfoots, led by Nori, and they were looking for the Stranger. Of course, these 3 mysterious beings I guess they're technically Nazgul. I think that
Technically, I guess, but the Nazgul, I didn't think. If I'm not mistaken on the fucking lore, the Nazgul should not be a thing. They should not be a thing. They're not created until later, after he made the rings and after he sucked their souls. Right? That's when the Nazgul came. So I don't know what the fuck is happening here. I'm just going to pretend like I'm stupid and don't know anything about Tolkien, because this fucking whole thing with them being Nazgul is it's off the chain, right?
Yeah, it seemed very weird, and I was just like, well, hold on, what? Because still they didn't give you any explanation, and so if you hadn't seen the original Lord of the Rings, or you haven't watched or haven't read any of the books, you were kind of like, what the hell are these beings? You know what I'm saying? It's just like, okay. I mean, that's kind of random. We're just searching after this dude. We think he's Sauron. And look, if he was Sauron, it'd be like, don't you think my man would have told you? It'd be like, oh, yes, bow before me. So I am Sauron. You know what I'm saying? I mean, at no point in time has it been put out there that Sauron would be unaware of who he is, no matter what form he's taken.
Correct, and I think a lot of people, including myself, just kind of assumed that he had been like a memory loss kind of thing, like he's Sauron but doesn't know it, and then you know, as what's his face reveals himself, it becomes obvious. Of course, not of course. So
yeah, exactly. Now they have a few moments right there where these three women are trying to get the stranger to remember his identity because they believe he's Sauron, and then we have the Harfoots launching their plan to get him out of the area. Now, of course, the three women set up a trap. They set up a trap, and they've actually got the stranger in another location because he has started going crazy, you know, because he can't control his powers right now. He'll just all of a sudden be conjuring up a spell, don't know what the hell he's doing. It's just like, and like the immediate transformation after this sequence to him being completely coherent, I'm like, okay, all right, so I guess you need to touch their staff in order to get coherent. But the Negro Harfoot, which I can't remember his name right offhand. Sadok. He actually is struck by one of the knives that these ladies have. I'm not sure why they have knives and bludgeoning tools when they've got magic. I mean,
right. Yeah.
I'm not sure. I'm just like, okay, okay. So now you need throwing stars, all right, to take out Harfoots. I'm just like, man, I think y'all could just go toe to toe with them. You know, I think you wouldn't need any type of weaponry. You know what I'm saying? To go toe to toe with a Harfoot. I didn't think they had anything with them. So during this sequence, you know, Nori says, you know, you're good. The leader of this clan of, we're assuming Nazgul, she has dipped her hand in the flame. This is her patented move. This is like her finishing move. If we're going wrestling, her finishing move is blowing the fire on you. So she was ready to burn the Harfoots to pieces, and then they were actually able to get to the staff to the stranger. And at that point in time, that's when they figure out that the stranger is not Sauron, but one of the Istari. Okay. Now, the Istari, they're angelic beings, and Istari means wizard. All right. So that's what that means in Tolkien. And at that point in time, it's too late. And he recollects how to banish them with their own staff. Corey, it's just like, it just didn't sit well for me. You know what I'm saying? It's something about it, just the way he just was so childlike the whole time, and all of a sudden, like, yep, I know exactly how to banish these creatures. I'm just like, it just seems like, okay, well, we had to just rush this in there quick because it was in a time of peril.
It's ridiculous. 100%. And this whole thing is, I mean, they have got so much money and so much time to have made this thing, and they just rushed through this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
I guess they put out a press release that said they're going to give us everything we want in the second season. Oh, really? The one that they just started filming that we're not going to see for at least 18 months, right?
Yeah, you go forget the first season.
No one's going to give a shit, dude. No one is going to care by the time it comes out.
Yeah, it's going to be like, okay, well, so they're going to give us everything we wanted. Okay. I mean, I guess. I don't know what I was expecting. Maybe I was expecting a little bit more conflict. Initially, that's probably what I was expecting. Usually when you think Lord of the Rings, you're thinking having to ward off orc armies and, magical stuff. And, and we didn't get too much of that in this first season. And obviously rings. So I'm assuming that this second season will have a ring or two involved. Seeing how we have the 3 rings now. So the stranger, he banishes the Nazgul or whatever the hell they are to the Shadow Realm. We're going Yu-Gi-Oh! Banish him to the Shadow Realm. At that point in time, he understands how to speak perfect English. He's coherent. He understands what he's doing now. And I'm just like, couldn't he understand before now? I mean, it's just like, and it's just happenstance that these 3 beings came around, because otherwise, how long would he have been childlike? You know what I'm saying? Could he have been childlike for 2 or 3 more seasons before he started getting his bearings about? Because it just seems like him touching that particular staff they had, just snapped him right into place. And I thought it was funny. They were like, "You're not Sauron, you're the other one." I'm like, well, how do they know of the other? What other one?
Yeah.
I mean, you're just like, you're the other one. It's like, elaborate.
And that would indicate that there's some sort of connection between Sauron and Gandalf, and that's never been established.
Yeah. So that's why I'm like, is that kind of like a yin and yang? Sauron comes back, so now the Ishtar, the angelic being per se, so he gets dropped off to be the yin and the yang of the universe. Would you think that would be the case?
Oh my, maybe. I really don't know. Maybe, possibly, but it seems as though Gandalf isn't like new. He's not just born. He must have come from the other age or previous age. Just their explanations of everything have just been fucking horrible. Like, this episode was so bad. They completely butchered the lore. They just showed just utter disrespect and contempt for Tolkien. It's really frustrating. It's really frustrating. And just watching it was just, it was just not cool.
I kind of felt like, I was like, wow, this is kind of just it's like a weak finale. It was really weak across the board. Especially after, you have the whole Mount Doom thing, and it just kind of just like, oh, okay, let's just make it kind of a soft landing for the finale. So what ends up happening there, of course, Sadok, he perishes in the woods. Nori and the other 3 make it back, and that's when Nori says, hey, I'm going on this journey with the stranger. And maybe this ties into Gandalf. We're assuming this is Gandalf. That's what we're assuming, right? I mean, I don't know who else it would be.
Yeah, it's Gandalf. It has to be Gandalf at this point. I mean, I think it confirms everything.
Unless it's Saruman.
No.
I mean, I don't know. Unless it's Saruman.
I mean, that's maybe a possibility, but I just don't think so. I mean, he's not a strong enough character to make you give a shit about him. It has to be Gandalf. And if it's not, it's another reason not to watch this show. Right.
So we're assuming it's Gandalf, and this would be the assumption. This is where he always has his ties with hobbits, Harfoots, the same thing. They're pretty much the same thing. So I'm assuming this is the beginning of his relationship with the small folk. All right. Per se. So that wrapped up that arc right there with the Harfoots. For me, the Harfoots and the stranger was probably the weakest part of this show. Of the first season.
Yeah, it didn't have to be there. And, all it did was build up the idea that this might be Gandalf. Oh, it's not Gandalf. Oh, it is Gandalf. they could have introduced that character in like that last episode. And like that's it. You know, they could have pushed them, Gondorf and the 3 Nazgul chicks. That could have been pushed into a 5-minute scene in this final episode without having to put so much build up around it. Really.
Yeah. There was a ton of build up, and especially with the 3 chicks, and their screen time was very limited. You have no background of them, where they came from. Did they serve under Sauron previously? Were they serving under Morgoth? Like you just like, it's just kind of like throwaway characters, and it just leaves you lost because you're just like, okay, I mean, where did they come from? How did they know that he landed here? How long had they been looking? You know what I'm saying? It's just like you have like a whole lot of unanswered questions right there, and it's just, I don't know, it just kind of leaves you like, okay, I mean, it's almost like. I didn't even really need you in these episodes. You know what I'm saying?
Yep, they brought nothing to it except about a total cumulative screen time of about 60 seconds of mystery, and that's about it.
Yeah. So that wraps up the Harfoots. So me and Corey can both agree probably the weakest part of these of all these episodes.
Terrible.
I guess we won't have the Harfoot clan. In the next seasons, it'll just be the adventures of the Stranger and Nori. Whatever adventures that they come across. I'm assuming that they're going to have to come across maybe Numenor or some part of Mordor. That's what I'm assuming. For it to end up tying in together. Does that sound feasible?
I mean, maybe some riders from Numenor. I don't see them making it to Numenor itself. They might come across some, men on horseback, kind of like, but that would just be a throwback to the Riders of Gondor in the original trilogy. So I don't know, man. Like, it's painful for me to even try to like guess what they're going to do, because if I come up with a good idea, they're definitely not going to do it.
Or they may steal it. They may hear it and steal it. Okay, so off the Harfoots, and then we're moving into the main portion of the episode, which would be the elves and Halibran. Now, as we let off from the previous episode, Halibran had been quote unquote injured in battle. Now, even though he's been deathly injured, on the cusp of death, laying on the bed, he manages to stand up forthright and get on horseback and ride with no issue, which probably should have been a red flag right there. Okay, it should have been an immediate red flag. Okay, it's almost like a girl who's a stripper. It's a red flag. Okay, it's just like, hey, pay attention because something's awry here. Now, he makes it. They make it back, and he is treated for his injuries. Okay. And immediately after he's treated for his injuries, the man just rolls up the Celebrimbor's laboratory. And I'm just like, okay, give yourself right away. Because he's just really interested. I'm like, yep, Sauron, definitely. You know what I'm saying? It just didn't leave it. Bo, you can't. And I'm trying to figure out how nobody else picked up on that quickly. They're like, hold on a second, dog. How the hell did you get up here? You know what I'm saying? You're supposed to be resting, and all of a sudden you up here in my. And
one thing that caught me was that there was no suspicion around him whatsoever until that last episode when Galadriel asks about him. When all of a sudden she has some kind of like ESP that he might be the bad guy. When this whole time she never even hints at that.
She's the one who declared him the king of the Southlands.
Yeah.
Now she won't lie, except he was Sauron. And so this harkens back. Okay, this harkens back. Remember, and this is something that we didn't touch on that one episode, but when Adar says, yeah, I killed Sauron. And when they had that confrontation and Halibran had the spear right at his throat, so you don't remember me. And Adar's like, no, man. Adar's like, am I supposed to know who you are? So Adar may be onto something here. He may have actually, quote unquote, vanquished Sauron previously. which kind of has you thinking about what actually was Adar's role during that previous war, as far as with Morgoth and all that. That leaves some questions there, and it kind of makes Adar a more interesting character.
Yeah, he's definitely one of the more interesting characters in the entire show. That was something that was honestly it was obvious. It was one of those things that was so obvious we should have picked up on it at the time.
And when you were talking about it, you were talking about it. You said just because of the rumblings you heard that Halbrand Sauron,
right?
So we were kind of looking for it, but when
it didn't have the impact that it should have.
No, it didn't. And the reason it didn't have the impact is because his actions were way too suspicious. Like he was just way too interested in what was going on in Celebrimbor's forge. It's just like, Bo, what are you doing here? And why are you so interested in this? Oh, let me help you make these rings. Oh, you got Mithril? Oh, great. I was just like, man, why are you so excited, dog? Okay. You know what I'm saying?
So the entire scene where they're trying to create the crown and they realize they got to do rings because they don't have enough of the ore. The whole none of it made any sense. It was really fucking stupid. They kept talking about how it was connection to like the other world, but it was just some mithril gold and silver. They didn't do any chants or wizardry. I mean, what are you talking about?
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
And so I understand the idea of that the mithril was supposed to push back on the dying of the elven tree and the elven people.
Yeah.
But they couldn't do it in a single crown. They had to do it in three. So what, you're going to have 3 elves wear 3 rings, and they're going to like the area between them will be safe. I mean, they didn't explain any of it at all. I thought it was kind of ridiculous. I kind of understood what they were going for, but they didn't make it clear. And yeah. So in the goddamn original story and in the lore, it was Sauron who made the rings, not the fucking elves. The elves didn't make their own rings to enslave themselves.
Yeah, not Celebrimbor. Yeah,
right. And these rings, how are these rings of power? They're just mithril rings with some gold and silver. That's it. Like, I don't understand how these have any kind of magical powers whatsoever.
Maybe because they put a rock in the top of it?
They didn't even say a chant. They didn't even do a dance. They didn't even do nothing.
Yeah, I'm with you there. It's just like, okay, you just made some rings. Sounds good. Because at no point in time had they said that mithril would be like a pathway to another realm. It's just like, what? It's just kind of thrown in there, and it's just like, and of course, the king, he was like, man, look, we're screwed. Okay. So don't fuck with no damn making no crown and no rings or nothing. Okay. We're leaving. All right. So don't worry about it. And of course, Celebrimbor was like, give me 3 months. Now, I don't know if you've actually ever played the game, Shadow of Mordor, but that particular game is not canon. But they use Celebrimbor in that particular game as he is actually I call him a wraith. He's a spirit, and he merges with Talion, and he actually has a ring of power in that, which is not canon, of course. When I looked up the canon for the rings, of course Galadriel has one because she has one in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, if I'm correct, the original Lord of the Rings. If I'm correct, I think that's what they said.
I don't think so. Because in the original trilogy, there are no other existing rings. The only ring that's still existing is the one ring. The Nazgul, assumingly, have their 9 rings for mortal men that they're still wearing. But they really don't address the 3 rings for the Elven Lords and where those rings were. We have to assume that after the one ring was cut from Sauron's hand, that the other rings were destroyed with it, since they were under Elven control. Now, we don't really know what happened to the Nazgul this whole time, from the time that Sauron fell the first time, or second time.
Right.
Or I don't know,
Right.
Sauron keeps falling. The guy is a fucking paper tiger.
Yeah, I know. Now, from what I've seen, what somebody had up there, of course, you've got you've got the One Ring, and I guess this is the hierarchy of power. You've got the One Ring that Sauron made, and if I'm correct, he made that in the volcanoes of Mount Doom. Correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so he made that in Mount Doom, which he's not going to have any mithril, so I don't know how that's going to work out. But hey, look, we can fix that. Maybe some of his orcs go steal some mithril. Then we've got the three rings, which are for the Elven Kings under the sky. You got Narya, which is fire. That's with the red ruby, and that's Gilligad. Then Círdan. Then it says Gandalf had it. Then we got Ninya, water, which is Galadriel. That's the white stone. And then we got Valaya, which is air, which is the blue one, which Gilead, then Elrond had. So, of course, Galadriel has the wherewithal, said, nah, 2 rings. If we only do 1 ring, then it would destroy people. 2 rings isn't enough. How about 3 thrice rings? And that'll really throw them off. So it's like,
None of that made any sense whatsoever, and I don't understand how any of that kind of coincides with the fact that mithril, when in proximity to the tainted leaves, makes the leaves healthy again. What does any of that have to do with these 3 rings that they fucking made? Because the whole reason they needed the mithril was to save the elves.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. Like, I keep looking for some kind of, like, logical, reasonable explanation of this stuff, and my brain is, like, on this loop looking for it, and it can't find it, and I just have to acknowledge that it doesn't exist. There's nothing rational to what they fucking did.
Well, yeah, they just kind of threw stuff together at the end to finally have some rings up there, which is what I was saying the whole time. I was like, man, if you're going to make rings of power, I got to see a ring sometime. But you've seen a ring at the end, and you didn't even see what they did. You were like, well, damn, man. I done watched 8 episodes of Rings of Power. I seen the rings at the end. I didn't even see them do shit. So I don't even know why they're powerful or what they do. So I guess they got to address that right out the gate. But Halbrand, of course, very suspicious. I should have called on to it right out the gate. But, of course, Galadriel, she sees how interested he is in making these rings, and she becomes suspicious. She implores one of the elves to actually look up some history on Sauron. And at that point in time, he retrieves the scroll, and she finds out that the king of the Southlands, his heir, had been struck down many a moon ago. What is it, 1,000 years? It's been like a while. They had no king of the Southland for a long time, bud. And so it's not Halbrand, which she had branded as the king of the Southland. She just brought him right before him. I have your king. I'm like, well, damn, can you do some research first? I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean, you're just going to assume this. Hey, but that's the difference between that particular era and like now. You're talking about, 200 years ago, where somebody had to draw, like Wild Wild West had to draw a picture of your face and put it up on the wall. Oh, yeah, he's wanted. And there's been like 2 people to sing you. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of something like that. But, of course, when she's looking at the scroll, she is confronted by Halbrand. And they have a short interlude. And then she goes to stab him in the neck with her brother's blade. And that's when I'm not sure what the hell happens. I really don't know at all. Like she goes into like some dream state.
That's all we can assume is it is a dream state.
Yeah, like where she's talking to her brother, and then she goes back to talking to Sauron, and he's saying how he wants to smack them butt cheeks. I mean, that's pretty much what I think he's saying. You could become my queen. I mean, I guess he wants to get some of that thin meat. And from there, they end up back on the raft again. And, of course, in great fashion, she says, I will be the one that strikes you down, and he just does this loud yell, and all of a sudden she's just laying in the water. And he's gone. I'm like, what? I mean, Corey, I'm like, what? I mean, help me out here. You got to help me.
So this was as bad as that scene in She-Hulk when they're like, "Yeah, you want to like turn the camera away so I can change so we can save on the budget." Like,
Yeah.
that's exactly what they fucking did. Exactly what they did.
I was like, okay, so she went from about to stab him in the neck. He stops her hand. And I guess by him stopping her hand, he puts her in a dream state so he can get away and not kill her.
See, you're looking for rational explanations again. You have to get that stuff out of your mind. Jedi mind trick, out of your mind.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's what I was doing. I was like, hold on a second. What just happened? You know, I was just like I went through all this and, you know, usually at the end, you know, okay, break free and then maybe you have some type of battle ensue between her and Halbrand. And, you know, she might injure him, but he gets away, you know what I'm saying? Scatters away. I don't know what he can do.
Right.
I don't know if he can turn himself to pixie dust or what and scoot off. But, I mean, he got out of there quick as hell. But, I mean, I don't know how far they are from the Southlands and Mordor. But, Bo, he scooted out of there quick as hell. All right. He ain't have a horse or nothing, okay? I guess he can teleport. I mean, I guess. I don't know. So he kind of said the whole time, he was like...
Well, if he can teleport, how come he was stuck out in the goddamn ocean in the very beginning? If he can just snap his fingers and disappear, what was he stranded for?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, he can't tell me, this is my plan. I know Galadriel's going to jump off the ship like a dumbass and try to swim back to shore when there's no land in sight, and I'll pick her up, and she'll pretty much fall in love with me. You know what I'm saying? Even though she's married, and and lead me right to Celebrimbor so we can make these rings. I'm like, but he ain't make no plan like that. Come on, man. I mean, it's just too much chance in that plan. They had that big worm in the ocean, but the worm could have just swooped her right on up. That'd have been it for that plan. Oh well. So it's just like as you said, I'm trying to be logical about the plan. Because, you know, like in movies when they have a twist ending, like somebody who's an actual villain you didn't know, like they'll go back through the scenes and you'll see, oh, dang, I missed that stuff. It was showing you the whole time. I don't think I missed anything.
No, me neither. It was just poorly executed.
Yeah, I mean,
it just goes to show that you can have all the money in the fucking world, and it doesn't mean that you're going to be able to come up with a good product in media. Seriously. Like, I'm just sitting here, like, in awe that we spent, like, 9 fucking weeks reviewing this show, and for the grand finale, they couldn't even give us anything worth, you know, writing home about.
Yeah, it didn't give you anything where you were like, oh, dang, boy, I can't wait for season 2. You know what I'm saying? You wanted to just like, okay. That's what you kind of felt like. It was like, okay, yep, that was the end of this season. And it's just like, you kind of felt let down. You know, that it was hard to not feel let down, especially seeing how the conflict between Galadriel and Sauron was right there in front of you, and he just kind of just scurries off. So Galadriel makes her way immediately back up to Celebrimbor and his forge, and of course they're like, "Hey, look," and the name of this episode is Alloyed. So they're like, well, the Mithril is rejecting everything else. It will only accept the finest gold and silver from Valinor. I'm like, how the hell you know that? I mean, and look, but she's the only one that's got gold and silver from Valinor because she's got her brother's blade. So I'm like, boy, you asking her to take a big risk? You know what I'm saying? This is sacred to her, and you don't know if the shit gonna work. You know what I'm saying? I'm just like, I mean, are you sure you want to take that leap?
And like, I still don't understand what the fucking rings are supposed to do. I have no idea. I mean, are they just supposed to kind of beat back that darkness that was creeping in over the trees? What is the purpose of these rings? I mean, originally Sauron created them so we could control the Elven Lords and could control the kings of men, and like, so this just makes no sense. There's no need for them to make rings.
Mm-hmm.
There's just not. Like, the whole premise on why they made those rings is dumb.
Yeah. I mean, I can't agree more. Because, I mean, the whole time I was looking at it, I was just like, And you're going to do what with these? I mean, it's just what I was like. It's just like, okay. I mean, it's mixed with mithril, and of course they made sparks and made it seem all flashy. They were sitting there, they were hammering on it. And they put the stone in the top, and maybe they'll give us a little bit more background. Who's going to teach them how to use the rings? You know what I'm saying? It's just like you say, they didn't imbue any type of magic. They wasn't a seance. They didn't have anybody, do a smoke signal or anything. I was just like, man, I mean, can I get something that makes me think that these things are magical?
Right.
Because at this point in time, like, it's just like, okay, maybe they can just walk around and just walk near the trees and the black stuff will go away. You know what I'm saying? The darkness or whatever will go away. That's all you can assume right now.
Right, and the imbuing with the gold and silver was supposed to amplify the magicness of the fucking mithril. So, man.
Because it's sacred. It's sacred gold and silver from Valinor. It's different than regular gold and silver.
That's not so sacred, right?
Yeah, it's not as sacred. Okay, so
the elven rabbi didn't say his little prayer over it.
That's it. Cool, you figured it out. That's it to a T. The elven rabbi did not say the magical words. Maybe they need a Gandalf there, or the stranger. I'm sorry.
So that's something we can guarantee is going to happen next season. Is that Gandalf is going to cross paths with some relevant people in the next one for sure.
Yeah, he's got to.
It has to, or else they're just dragging their feet.
He has to. So they create these rings, and then we see for the final scene after Galadriel, makes her statement, and she's still very like hard, though. She's just like. She's not a likable character, like at all. For me personally, it's just like she's very brash. She's very like extremely masculine, and she's not very smart. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, it's it across the board.
She's like a little spoiled brat. That's how she comes off.
Yeah. That to a T. So that wraps that up with them. Then you see Sauron walking in Mordor and looking at Mount Doom. Now, do you think it was in Sauron's plan for Adar to open the floodgates and create Mount Doom? It just seems like happenstance. Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
And I'm kind of puzzled. Is what's he going to do? So now that Adar is the man with all the orcs, is he just going to walk up in Adar's camp and be like, "Ta-da!
I'm Sauron.
I'm here now." Right. And if he doesn't do that, if Adar is not a factor, what's he going to walk into where all the orcs are and be like, "Lucy, I'm home," and they're just going to like accept him? Like, how is that going to fucking work?
Yeah, I don't know, man. It leaves a whole lot of questions. Especially with the ring that he's supposed to make. Now that they've got mithril so ingrained in it, I would assume that he would have to get some mithril in order to imbue into the ring.
Correct.
And then what other is he going to be able to find the other alloy? Valinor gold and silver to imbue, because they've made that statement that no other alloy will mix with mithril. So it's almost like paint yourself in a corner.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they've never really talked about the alchemy behind the rings before, so.
Yeah, like I said, the only one that they said had mithril in it was Galadriel's ring.
So what was the point of the other two rings at all?
Yeah, that was, well, I'm just saying in Tolkien's work. That was the only one that they said had mithril in it.
But all three of them had the magical powers, but only one of them. See, this makes no sense. None of this jives with what we just saw in this episode. None of it.
No, none of it. None of it at all. So it's just like, so with what you put before us, so now Sauron has to go on some type of quest to gain access to mithril and also to gain access to Valinor gold and silver. So it's just like,
if you'll recall, remember, so we have the Balrog that rises and ends up destroying the mines of Moria, which is where they were. And so then we have to assume that somehow, I mean, the orcs obviously come in there. So maybe Sauron takes control of all the Mithril after that happens, and the dwarves are run out.
Well, dang, you would feel if he took control of all the Mithril that he would have an indestructible army. Almost.
Perhaps.
Yeah, so it's just, I mean, it's just like it makes it where when you try to like wrap all this stuff up and tie a nice little bow, it makes it really hard to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Because you've got so many hoops you got to jump through now, in order for him to make of course the one ring to rule them all. And the other, because there was actually 20 rings, there were 7 rings that were given to the dwarf lords. I don't know a whole lot about those.
No, neither do I.
I'm not sure if we'll see those in this series. But seeing how it's the Rings of Power, I feel like you would see all 20. They're probably just going to keep it more towards. They probably won't do the 7 dwarf ones. They'll probably do the one ring and then the 9 for the Kings of Men. That's what I would assume.
Mm-hmm.
But now the question is the rest of the rings going to be made in Mount Doom? That's my. That would be the assumption, right?
I don't know, because they never really talk about how the other rings were destroyed, if they were ever destroyed, and how they were destroyed. And perhaps it's only the one ring that is made at Mount Doom.
Okay.
Well, obviously, the other 3 weren't. So.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. And so, yeah, I'm speaking about the 9 rings that he needs for the Kings of Men, which turns into like his Nazgul army.
Correct.
That ends up corrupting them. So, where are they going to be made? They've got to be tied into the storyline at some point in time, to wrap this thing up as the Rings of Power. So I don't know. It's left you with a whole lot more questions, and it just felt like a sloppy ending.
Yeah, and honestly, now that the season's over, I don't think that the title Rings of Power actually has to do with the content of the show at all. I think that is just the name that they would decide to go with, right? Like Star Wars, A New Hope, right? Mm-hmm. The whole movie ain't about A New Hope. It's just that's just what they called it. Mm-hmm. So Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, is just a generic title. Has nothing to do with the actual content of the show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You're spot on there. Because like we've been saying the whole time, we didn't get a ring to the end. We've got no explanation of the rings. So a year and a half from now, that's what we're assuming. How long it's going to take for them to come out with season 2? At least,
yeah.
Yeah, at least a year and a half, with filming, pre-production, post-production, all that good jazz.
So this becomes the real question moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Can they salvage the mess they've created? Is it possible?
They're going to need some really good writers to come in and try to get this thing under control. I'm not going to lie to you. The Halbrand Sauron deal with Adar there, he's going to have to do something for the orcs to believe that he's Sauron. Like some type of magical something.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know what he can do, but something like that's going to happen. And from what I'm assuming is that Adar is going to end up dying in one of these seasons, maybe even the next season. That would be my assumption.
Yeah.
From where this is going, so he's going to end up perishing, or maybe he'll end up coming back. Maybe he perishes in the future, but maybe he comes back and actually fights on the side of quote unquote good. Goes back with Galadriel, and then maybe he escapes. Another thing they didn't wrap up at all. Isildur. He's just
yes. Well, I mean, he's not dead. We know that he can't be dead. So yeah, they should have.
Hey, let's not talk too soon. Let's not talk too soon. They might just scrap it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's be like, man, this ain't canon at all. Okay, don't worry about it. All right, we had to throw it together. But we're assuming that they can't go that far off track as far as the canon goes, and so. You got no other mention or no other sight of Isildur at all. You ain't see a hand popping up out the rubble or anything. It's just like, so going into the next season, everybody's, if you don't know anything about Lord of the Rings, he's forgotten. It's like, oh yeah, he's dead. We're moving on. You know, he doesn't seem to be an integral piece at all.
Mm-hmm. And putting everything in the timeline kind of perspective, we're only dealing with maybe a 20-year time frame from this season right here that we just saw to the time that Isildur cuts off Sauron's finger with the ring, because he's not an old man at the time. He's an adult male, got to be 30, 40. So the time frame we're talking about for them to play out the entire storyline is only about 20 years. Which is rather interesting when you put it in the context of it'll be 3,000 years before Sauron returns again. You know what I mean?
Right.
So Sauron, man, they're not doing a good job of selling him as a big baddie, because he's been defeated once before. He's going to be defeated a second time in under 20 years. And then the third time he's defeated in a period of, less than 2 years. Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, Sauron's not a threat to the world, people.
He just likes to come back and just mess around with you a little bit. I don't know if he's like the like Voldemort, where he puts his soul in Horcruxes or whatever. And that's got to be the case. It's I've went by many names. Well, how many times have you done this, Sauron? You know what I'm saying? You know, how many times you got your ass whooped? You figure you'd be like, look, man, I'm just done. And it's just kind of funny. He always says, it's like, you know, I'm trying to bring peace to the world, but it's my peace under my rule. You know what I'm saying? So I'm trying to bring peace, as opposed to, I was looking at some stuff on Morgoth. It said Morgoth just hated everybody. He said, I just want to kill everything. Even my own folks. After I get done killing the folks that I really don't like, then I'm just going to I just don't want anything to exist, okay? Because I can't create. Like, was it a rule, a Letho, or whatever, the actual god of, this is the quote-unquote god of the Tolkien universe. Who was the creator. Now, another thing, Numenor. We see Queen Regent return to Numenor. Her dad's dead. So we're assuming that they're going to have some type of, with her being blind, they're going to have some type of change of rules, some type of overthrowing in Numenor. Could we expect to see that in season 2?
That's tough. I don't know.
With the father dead. And her blind.
Well, I see some shady shit going on with the other guy, with the kind of chubby guy with the gray streak in his hair.
Yeah, the one who told everybody, to call homie an elf lover. I mean. Right.
So that guy obviously is gunning for power, but if the Numenor is going to get destroyed, who knows? They got about a year to figure out what the hell they want to do. Hopefully they'll listen to our show and they'll be like, man, those guys, they got it right. Let's fix it based on what they tell us.
Yeah. Because this show can be fantastic, but you've got to make sure. And I've always said this, for people who don't know anything about the lore, you've got to make sure that everything makes sense to them. And there's just points and moments and things that are happening, and you're just like, okay, I mean, what's this got to do with anything?
And based on what we've heard about their budget and stuff, we're not seeing anything. Each episode costs $60 million to make. I mean, I've seen blockbuster movies get made for less than $60 million, and they spend $60 million per episode. We're not getting our money. We're not getting their money's worth. Nothing that they have shown us has been like wowing to the point where you're like, oh my God, I'm starting to think half that $1 billion got sent to Ukraine.
I mean, at least half of it got sent to Ukraine. Well, you've got a good point there. The only thing that I could think, the vast landscapes, but they did take this in New Zealand. So, they've already got landscapes like that. So I haven't seen anything, and the orcs don't look CGI. They don't look CGI to me at all.
Correct.
So I haven't seen anything that was just like over the top action wise or scenic wise. I guess the Numenor would technically be CGI, and the Mount Doom thing would technically be CGI. But other than that, everything else has seemed pretty close to, using just, real live people in scenes. So you're right, Corey. They spent a lot of money, and it doesn't seem like you're getting quite that bang for your buck with all the money that they spent. I can definitely agree with you there. And yeah, there's just some things that they probably should have shored up, should have introduced a little bit quicker in the particular first season of the Rings of Power. The sword that is actually a key. I mean, can that still be a sword that has some other type of power in it? Because I'm just wondering. Man,
I don't know.
That thing's like gone. It's like gone forever. It's just like this heel's gone forever. But it seemed that it may have some other powers. So, it drew off blood, so it's just like, I don't know. It's just stuff like that where it's here and then it's gone. It's just like, oh yeah, well that's all it was there for. And you're just like, really? Is that all you're gonna give me? That's how I kind of felt in some moments, and especially at the end when they just show the rings and it's just like, oh yes, glorious day. You're just like, and can y'all pick one up? Can I see like something move with it or something like that? I don't know, man. Pointed at something. I just want to see something. You'd be like, oh man, this shit does something. Now folks just see 3 rings on the table. You know what I'm saying? So folks don't get pissy. You know what I'm saying? We don't want people to be pissy. We don't want it to corrupt. But it didn't tell you why if there was only one ring, why it would corrupt. You have no idea because you don't know what they do. You don't have any inclination of what they do. You would just assume that they would just be to cure the elven tree. So why would I be worried about corruption?
Yeah, good question.
Yeah, and then they say it ties into the unknown world or whatever, and it's just like I'm gonna say that, and maybe I need to go back and watch the Lord of the Rings a little bit better. But that's what I never understood with the one ring, the main ring. I put it on my finger and I go to an alternate world, and it's just kind of it. I was just like, I was always just like, okay, what's the big deal? You know what I'm saying? What's the big deal? I guess
that one ring, when used by Sauron, could control the other rings and therefore control all the kingdoms of men and dwarves and all that stuff.
Yeah, but just regular folks just be acting the fool about it. Just like, and they got no clue what it. You just put it on their finger and just I went to another realm. So that at least you move in the shadows. At least you know what I'm saying. If you need to get out of a sticky situation, that's what it seems like to me. So yeah, that's the Rings of Power finale wrapped up in a tight little bow for you guys. Corey, expectations for season 2?
None whatsoever.
You, you got none?
None whatsoever. And as far as a rating for the season as a whole, I'm going to give it a total of 3 cubes out of 10.
That's pretty. It's pretty low, Corey.
Yeah,
it's pretty low.
I gave them a couple episodes to 5, hoping that it would go somewhere, and it just didn't. They had every opportunity, and they didn't take it. And yeah.
I'm probably around 3.5 to 4, depending on how I feel that day.
Do you think the show would be any better if they brought over some of the She-Hulk writers?
Oh my God, dude! The show definitely wouldn't have had any point. It wouldn't even have had a good moment. You know what I'm saying? The best moment of it is when it went off.
So if they were involved in writing the Rings of Power, the only thing that would be different is that Galadriel would be banging everybody.
This is true. She would at least, and these episodes are 70-something minutes, so golly, she'd have banged 12 dudes by now, 12 different ones. You know what I'm saying? She'd have done all of them. And so, and another thing, she just kind of mentions her husband, and it's just like, yeah, whatever. I was like, yeah, Celeborn. I never seen him again. What? That's just it. Because he's like a major player, like in the lore, isn't he? Somewhat.
I'm not too sure. I'm not too deep into the lore. I read the Lord of the Rings trilogy books, but that was in The Hobbit, but that was it.
Okay, yeah. From what I seen on a couple of videos, he had a whole lot more to do with the lore, or a whole lot more substantial role in the lore than what they're letting on here. So I guess they can't really have him in there because that would take some of the light off Galadriel, and she's. We want women to be mostly the main characters. You got to think about it. You got Galadriel, who's a focus. You got Queen Regent, who's a focus. You got Nori, who's a focus. You got Browning, who's a focus. They focused on those characters more than they have a lot of the men. So yeah. I mean, this is what I've seen.
We have a long time to ponder what they're going to do. So I honestly, it's going to. I'm going to purge it from my data banks and not think about it until probably a month before it comes out again.
Yeah, until that arrives, and we'll look at the trailer and be like, yeah, they may not have fixed it. So yeah, that's Rings of Power finale. I guess if you need to watch it, okay. If you don't watch it, I think that's okay as well.
Yeah.
It's not a must watch. It's not Andor. Andor's a must watch.
Yeah.
So yeah, this isn't a must watch, but if you're just the type of person who wants to keep up with the lore and how they're proceeding along with this, then definitely check it out. If that's what you want to do, but kind of keep your expectations a little bit lower if you are a major fan of the lore and you dived into the books heavily, because that will disappoint. As I think it disappoints most people. Whenever I hear somebody say the books were better, I'm like, well, you disappoint yourself. They're going to be able to go into a whole lot more detail. The writer is thinking about things, how he's going to bring the world together. And then when they bring it to the big screen, they really don't care about that. They just want to put the name up there, and they know folks will watch it. That's kind of the premise. Could you agree with that?
Yeah, for sure.
Yep. So we appreciate everybody for checking us out on this episode of Showtime with the Cube. This week, we are going to do a couple of flash reviews on trailers. Black Adam, which is coming out in a couple days. Corey, I plan on trying to do that tomorrow if you can. And then also Wakanda Forever. We're going to check out that trailer. It looks like it's going to introduce a bunch of new characters into the MCU on that. So be on the lookout for those trailers. And then we'll try to we'll have Andor. And then we're going to try to do a couple of horror flicks. I've got to get caught up. I know you were talking about doing Halloween Ends. Mm-hmm. I got to watch the first two. But I'm going to see the thing in. I ain't watched the first one. You know what I'm saying? So I got to watch the first two. We're talking about doing Hellraiser as well. So we're going to have a couple of horror flicks coming up for you guys as well, as soon as I'm able to catch up with them. So we're going to be doing that. So we're going to have some variety. The shows are kind of be thinned out at this point in time unless we see something that's interesting. So we'll be on the lookout for that. So we appreciate everybody for checking us out. From your boy XQ420, from my co-host, the powerful Corey Hughes. We will catch y'all on the next episode of Showtime with the Cube. Peace out.